Under the fading glow of Hollywood's golden light, another era quietly came to an end. She was one of the last living links to a world of glamour, grace, and true movie magic. Until now. June Lockhart, the beloved actress who once defined television motherhood for generations, has passed away at the age of 100. She died peacefully in Santa Monica, surrounded by her daughter and granddaughter, the same warmth she brought to millions of living rooms across America. For over 7 decades, June wasn't just an actress. She was the woman who raised America's TV children, guiding Timmy and Lassie, comforting a family lost among the stars in Lost in Space, and reminding every viewer that kindness and strength could coexist in a single glance. Her death isn't just a farewell to a performer. It's the closing scene of a story that began before television itself. A story that shaped what it meant to be a mother, a dreamer, and a true star in Hollywood's most timeless age. June Lockhart's story didn't begin with fame. It began with family. Born in 1925 to Jean and Kathleen Lockhart, both accomplished actors, June entered the world already surrounded by stage lights and scripts. While most children her age were playing with dolls, June was memorizing lines and watching her parents transform into characters under the warm hum of studio lamps. By 8, she had already made her stage debut in the Metropolitan Opera's Peter Ibbetson, a performance that hinted at the grace and discipline that would define her life. But her true cinematic introduction came in 1938's A Christmas Carol, where she played the daughter of Bob Cratchit, opposite her real-life father as Bob and her mother as Mrs. Cratchit. It was a family portrait immortalized on film, a reflection of how naturally storytelling ran in their blood. Her very first movie line, I know, sausages, sakaitai, became a cherished Lockhart inside joke, one that made every rewatch a moment of laughter instead of nostalgia. In the black and white glow of MGM's golden years, young June learned to love not just the camera, but the magic behind it. The teamwork, the patience, the invisible hum of art being born. She wasn't just growing up in Hollywood. She was Hollywood, bright, curious, and entirely unaware that she would one day become one of its longest burning lights. By the time most young actresses were still fighting for auditions, June Lockhart had already left her fingerprints on Hollywood's silver screen. In the 1940s, she appeared in classics like Meet Me in St. Louis, Sergeant York, and She-Wolf of London, each role carving her deeper into the fabric of American cinema. But while many stars of her era clung tightly to the glamour of film, June did something few dared to do. She crossed over to the unknown world of television. It was the late 1940s, and TV was still considered experimental, a flickering novelty that few believed would last. But June saw something others didn't: a new way to reach people. Her Broadway debut in 1947's For Love or Money proved her range wasn't limited to the camera lens. Her performance was so striking that she earned the Tony Award for Outstanding Newcomer, solidifying her reputation as a true performer, not just a Hollywood face. "Theater is night after night after night," she would later say, acknowledging the discipline it demanded. Yet she thrived on that challenge. From black and white film reels to live stage lights and eventually the television glow in America's living rooms, June Lockhart became a pioneer of reinvention. She didn't just adapt to the evolution of entertainment, she defined it. Whether playing refined women in period dramas or resilient mothers in frontier westerns, she bridged generations and genres effortlessly. Each role, no matter how small, carried her quiet conviction. That performance wasn't about fame, but connection, a truth that would soon make her one of the most beloved figures on television. In 1958, June Lockhart stepped into a role that would forever cement her place in American hearts. As Ruth Martin on Lassie, she didn't just play a mother, she embodied one. Week after week, families gathered around their televisions to watch her warmth, patience, and steady grace guide Timmy through another adventure with his loyal dog. To millions, she was the nation's mom, the woman who could calm any storm with a single gentle word. Her on-screen chemistry with young John Provost was so genuine that it transcended fiction. Years later, Provost would say, "My own mother might forget my birthday, But June never does. That wasn't acting. That was June, the rare kind of person who carried maternal love far beyond the set. But if Lassie made her America's mother, Lost in Space made her timeless. In 1965, she traded pastures for the cosmos, portraying Maureen Robinson, the matriarch of a family of space colonists. The show's blend of science, fiction, and heart turned her into a new kind of icon, one that bridged the innocence of the 1950s with the imagination of the space age. When asked about the impact of the show, she joked with NPR, "No one ever told me Lassie made them want to be a farmer, but Lost in Space made people become scientists." It was her wit, elegant, disarming, deeply human, that made her unforgettable, and even decades later, her story refused to fade. In 2021, she returned for a voice cameo in Netflix's Lost in Space remake, a subtle but powerful reminder that some stars never dim. They just move to a different part of the sky. June Lockhart wasn't merely part of television history. She was its heartbeat, a living bridge between innocence and imagination, proving that true warmth, whether on Earth or in space, never goes out of style. When Lost in Space ended, most actors would have slowed down. June Lockhart did the opposite. She dove headfirst into a new era of television, appearing on everything from Magnum PI and Murder. She wrote to Full House, Grey's Anatomy, and even General Hospital. No role was too small, no genre too strange. She embraced them all with the same quiet confidence that had defined her since childhood. But what made June truly remarkable wasn't just her longevity. It was her fearlessness in defying expectations. Off-screen, she was nothing like the gentle matriarchs she played. June Lockhart was a firecracker, adventurous, witty, and completely unpredictable. She once admitted, "I do lots of things that don't go hand in hand with my image." And she meant it. She had driven army tanks, floated in hot air balloons, and even taken to the skies in glider planes with no engines, simply for the thrill of it. She loved rock and roll concerts, laughed loudly, and lived curiously, always chasing new experiences, as if youth were a choice, not an age. To the public, she was the picture of composure and kindness, the mother America wished it had. But behind that calm smile was a woman with a restless heart, one who refused to be boxed in by anyone's idea of who she was supposed to be. June Lockhart didn't just play strong women. She was one. Fearless, funny, and free. She spent her life proving that even the kindest souls can carry a streak of rebellion, and that grace and adventure can share the same heartbeat. Recognition seemed to follow. June Lockhart not because she chased it, but because she earned it, again and again. She was one of the rare few to have two stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, one for film and another for television, both dedicated on the same day in 1960. It was a symbolic moment, honoring a woman who had seamlessly bridged the two worlds that defined 20th century entertainment. But June's legacy reached far beyond Hollywood Boulevard. Her fascination with science and exploration turned her into something few actors could ever claim to be: a cultural ambassador between imagination and discovery. Beginning in the 1970s, June developed a close relationship with NASA, giving talks, attending shuttle launches, and inspiring young minds to look beyond the stars. Her portrayal of Maureen Robinson in Lost in Space had captured the spirit of exploration, and NASA recognized that. In 2014, she was awarded the Exceptional Public Achievement Medal, one of the agency's highest civilian honors. "I've been to 2 space shuttle launches and worked with NASA since the 1970s, she said proudly. No other actress has received this honor. To generations of scientists and dreamers, she wasn't just an actress. She was their space mom. Her curiosity didn't stop at the cosmos. June had an enduring love for American politics and journalism. After meeting President Harry Truman in 1948 and boldly asking him what it felt like to be in the Oval Office, she was gifted a lifetime press pass by Eisenhower's press secretary Jim Haggerty. For the next 47 years, she attended press briefings, asked sharp questions, and followed policy as closely as any reporter. To many who met her, June Lockhart wasn't simply a performer. She was a scholar of the world, deeply engaged, endlessly curious, and as respected in intellectual circles as she was beloved in Hollywood. In an industry built on illusion, June stood out for her authenticity. Whether standing under the lights of a soundstage or the glow of a rocket launch, she remained the same, poised, humble, and profoundly curious about the universe around her. Hers was a legacy that transcended fame, a life powered by wonder, courage, and an unshakable belief that learning never ends. Behind the camera and far from the spotlight, June Lockhart's greatest role was simply being a mother. She married John F. Maloney in 1951, and together they had two daughters, Anne and June Elizabeth. The marriage ended in 1959, but her devotion to her children never wavered. Her eldest, Anne Lockhart, followed in her footsteps and became an actress herself, best known for her roles in Battlestar Galactica and The Hardy Boys. The two shared not just a profession, but a profound friendship. Interviews with Anne over the years always circled back to the same word when describing her mother: light. In her later years, June made her home in Santa Monica, where she lived quietly but vibrantly. Even in her 90s, she remained sharp, witty, and wonderfully curious. She gave interviews filled with humor and memory, speaking about everything from MGM's early sound stages to modern streaming shows with equal ease. Those who met her said her eyes still carried that same spark, the one that had lit up television screens for decades. She often spoke about gratitude, about how lucky she felt to have lived through so many eras of entertainment and still be remembered fondly by each generation. When she passed on October 23, 2025, her family was by her side, her daughter June Elizabeth and granddaughter Christiana holding her hands. It was a peaceful farewell, just as she had lived her life, gracefully, surrounded by love. The family announced that funeral services would be private, asking instead that those wishing to honor her memory donate to causes she cared deeply about. The Actors Fund, ProPublica, and International Hearing Dog, Inc. It was a fitting final request from a woman who had spent a century giving more than she ever took, giving her time, her warmth, and her voice to art, truth, and compassion. June Lockhart may have left this world at 100, but the kindness she embodied still echoes quietly in every story she told, every dream she inspired, and every person who ever looked at her screen presence and saw not an actress, but something far more eternal: home. A century is a long time to live, but in June Lockhart's case, it still feels too short. Few stars live long enough to watch the world change twice, from the black and white glow of Hollywood's golden age to the bright pixels of streaming television. But June did, and she left each era a little brighter than she found it. She was there when film was still magic and television was an experiment. She was there when astronauts first reached space, and when audiences watched it happen from their living rooms. Through it all, she remained steady, kind, and curious, a constant in an industry that so often forgets its own history. June Lockhart wasn't just an actress. She was a storyteller who helped America grow up. From A Christmas Carol to Lost in Space, she bridged generations with grace, humor, and quiet strength. Even her final cameo in 2021 proved that her light never faded. It simply softened. A reminder that some stars don't burn out. They glow on, and maybe that's her true legacy. She didn't just act in front of the camera. She lived as if life itself were her greatest role. She approached every moment, on screen and off, with curiosity, compassion, and courage. That's why her passing feels less like an ending and more like a standing ovation for a life perfectly performed. So tonight, as the curtain falls on 100 years of brilliance, we remember June Lockhart not with sorrow, but with gratitude. She showed us that grace can be fearless, that kindness can be powerful, and that stories, when told with heart, can outlive time itself. Which June Lockhart role lives in your heart?